thy builders have perfected thy beauty. Remember, I read Isaiah 28 verses 1 through 6. Talked about Ephraim's beauty, how it's a fading flower. Hate me because I'm beautiful. Who is that? Who is like that? My people, right? The Lord is bringing down the beauty of Tyre. Verse 5, they have made all thy ships boards of fir trees of Sinir. They have taken cedars from Lebanon to make mats. Of the oaks of Bashan have they made thine oars. The company of the Asherites have made thy benches of ivory. Brought out of the isles of Chittim. Greece. Fine linen with embroidered work from Egypt was that which thou spreadest forth to be thy sail. Can you imagine? We don't have this today. Our sailcloth is not embroidered. I've never seen a sailor with an embroidery on his sails. I mean, that is just finery far above what we do today. Apparently, their beauty was so magnificent of Tyre in those days that they embroidered their sails. Can you imagine? Blue and purple from the isles of Elisha was that which covered thee. The inhabitants of Zidon and Arvad were thy mariners, sailors. Thy wise men, O Tyrus, that were in thee, were thy pilots. The ancients of Gebal and the wise men thereof were in thee, thy culkers and the ships. The only tribe that gets the blessings of the deep that lieth under is Joseph. Of the sea, with thy mariners were in thee to occupy thy merchandise. Verse 10, they of Persia and of Lud and of Phut were in the army. Thy men of war, they hanged the shield and helmet in thee. They set forth thy comeliness. Again, talking about beauty. The men of Arvad with thine army were upon thy walls round about, and the Gammadims were in thy towers. They hanged their shields upon thy walls round about. They have made thy beauty perfect. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So far, I've counted 4 mentions of the beauty of Tyre that the Lord makes. This is a funeral dirge. He's talking a lot about their beauty. Verse 12, Tarshish was thy merchant by reason of the multitude of all kinds of riches. Silver, iron, tin, and lead. They traded in thy fairs. Remember, I talked had these mines in Tarshish. They even went up to Cornwall, a Welsh island, for tin. So Tarshish was where they got these, where they had these mines. And the Bible even names the metals that they extracted from the mines of Tarshish, right there in verse 12. Verse 13, Javan, Tubal, and Meshach, they were thy merchants. They traded the persons of men and vessels of brass and they of the house of Togarmah traded in thy fairs with horses and horsemen and mules. The men of Dedan were thy merchants. Many isles were the merchandise of thine hand. They brought thee for a present horns of ivory and ebony. Syria was thy merchant by reason of the multitude of the wares of thy making. They occupied thy fairs with emeralds, purple, and embroidered. See, purple. Who invented purple? The Phoenicians invented purple. So the Phoenicians. And embroidered work and fine linen and coral and agate. Now they were thy merchants. They traded in thy market wheat of Minnith, and Panag, and honey, and oil, and balm. Damascus was thy merchant in the multitude of the wares of thy making, for the multitude of all riches, in the wine of Helbon and white wool. Dan also and Javan, going to and fro, occupied in thy fairs, brought bright iron. Cassia, a beautiful flower, a very fragrant flower. You can make anointing oil out of this flower. You can make perfume out of this flower, cassia. And calamus, same thing. I mean, not the same thing, but also it's a fragrant flower. Were in thy market. Dedan was thy merchant in precious clothes for chariots. Arabia and all the princes of Kedar, they occupied with thee in lambs and rams and goats. In these were they thy merchants. The merchants of Sheba and Raamah, they were thy merchants. They occupied in the fairs with chief of all spices and with all precious stones and gold. I mean, it just goes on. Amazing all the things that the Phoenicians sold. I mean, they were some serious merchants. The Bible is a true history book, people. These were thy merchants in all sorts of things, in blue clothes, in embroidered work, in chests of rich apparel, bound with cords and made of cedar, among thy merchandise. 25, here's a reference to ships of Tarshish. The ships of Tarshish did sing of thee in thy market, and thou wast replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the seas. So the ships of Tarshish were merchant vessels transporting merchandise. That we just read it all as incredible merchandise. On the Phoenicians so far, one of the things that they made a lot of was glass. Glass beads, glass pendants, glass vessels, glass vases. They perfected glass blowing to where they made little tiny delicate jewelry made out of glass of various different colors, colored glass, and artwork of glass. And they got so good at it and so efficient at it that it was at the point where they could really mass produce it, kind of like, and it really lowered the price to where the common people could afford to buy it. They mass produced it so much that they brought the price down really low. So the common people all over their empire would be able to buy their glass. So yeah, mass producing it, it was everywhere. You go in the shipwrecks, Phoenician shipwrecks, you can find these beautiful glass wares because they mass produced it so much. Thy rowers have brought thee into great waters. The east wind hath broken thee. There's another reference to shipwrecks and the east wind. The east wind broken thee in the midst of the seas. The east wind hath broken thee in the midst of the seas. Who on the earth who get always shipwrecked? My people. Everybody knows this. Whether it's a fisherman vessel or a sailing vessel or a pirate vessel or a carnival cruise ship, they're ships of Tarshish. They're always my people. They're always white European people, okay? Don't care where it happened in the world. They're always my, I'm Tarshish, okay? My people are Tarshish. Look at what the Spaniards look like and you'll see what I look like, okay? These are always the ones who suffer from these shipwrecks, that the Lord brings down our ships with the east wind into the waters in the midst of the seas. Okay, verse 27. Thy riches and thy fares, thy merchandise, thy mariners, and thy pilots. Pilots meaning ship captains. Okay? And as in Genesis, either Genesis 49 or Deuteronomy 33, where the thing of being a captain goes on the head. The head of Joseph, if you look up the word head in your Strong's Concordance, the Hebrew word actually means captain. So you get a captain of anything, captain of a ship, for example. A ship captain is by and large usually going to be a member of the tribe of Joseph. Ephraim or Manasseh, but definitely Joseph. Ship captains almost always are exiled Hebrew Israelites from the tribe of Joseph. They might call themselves Gentiles, but they are Joseph. In my family, I can name 2 men who are close family members who are ship captains. And they're both Ephraimites. Verse 29, and all that handle the oar, the mariners and all the pilots of the sea, shall come down from their ships. They shall stand upon the land, and shall cause their voice to be heard against thee, and shall bitterly, and shall cast upon their heads. They shall wallow themselves in the ashes, and they shall make themselves utterly bald for thee, and gird them with sackcloth, and they shall weep for thee with bitterness of heart, and bitter wailing, the grief of shipwreck. And in their wailing they shall take up a lamentation for thee, and lament over thee, saying, What city is like Tyrus, like the destroyed in the midst of the sea? Verse 33, when thy wares went forth out of the seas, thou filledst many people. Thou didst enrich the kings of the earth with the merchandise of thy riches and of thy merchandise. In the time when thou shalt be broken by the seas in the depths of the waters, thy merchandise and all thy company in the midst of thee shall fall. In all the inhabitants of the earth shall be astonished at thee, and their kings shall be sore afraid. They shall be troubled in their conscience. The merchants among the people shall hiss at thee. Thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt be any more. Now, this is a city that I just want to double check on this. I want to make sure that what I'm about to say is historically correct. I am fully prepared to say it, but I just want to double check to make sure I don't misspeak. Is it the island that got rebuilt? The port island? Or was that Sidon? Tyre and Sidon map. I'm looking it up right now. Map. Take me just a quick second, and then I'll be back with you. Come on. Well, that doesn't tell me. Now, Tyre is actually located in Lebanon today, but it's not what it used to be in the days of the Phoenician Empire. Okay. So forgive me. It's either Tyre or Sidon, and I don't remember which one. Where there was a first, I'm going to say, let's just say it was Tyre. There was a first Tyre and there was a second Tyre. The second Tyre was actually kind of like a man-made island, and it was extended maybe 20 miles off the coast or something, and they had a causeway, which is kind of like a land bridge that they built up to get there. So it was a seaport and a city and an island that was extended away from the mainland. Actually built up an island where one didn't exist before. The Phoenicians were the ones who did this, and it became this glorious merchant island. I was describing it for us right here. It must have been a beautiful place. It must have been a very rich place. So the ships of Tarshish supplied merchandise for Tyre's markets and bringing goods from all over the Phoenician Empire. Now let's look at Ezekiel 28. Talking about the king of Tyre and the complaints that the Most High had against the king of Tyre, and why the Most High decided to bring judgment on him. Here it is. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the midst of the seas. Yet thou art a man, and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. You see, the Phoenicians, they occupied the seas. I mean, the Phoenicians lived on the seas like a cowboy lives on his horse. It was their way of life. They were far more comfortable on the seas